is there some legitimacy in actually contemplating a referendum?
Well, let me begin by saying that obviously the framers of the Constitution quite rationally contemplated that at some point there may be need for the people of Kenya to change their own constitution. After all, it is their constitution. And that's why within the Constitution there is provision for amending the Constitution. There are two categories of amendments. There are those amendments which can be done by Parliament as the representatives of the people, and then there are those there's that category of amendments that the framers of the Constitution felt needed the direct say-so of the people through a referendum. So, in principle, the Constitution contemplates a referendum, and there is nothing wrong with that at that level. But to talk about a referendum now, I think we need to ask ourselves, to what extent have we implemented this Constitution or made an effort to implement it in the manner in which it was contemplated, for us as a country to be able to say that with the benefit of hindsight, we think we want to amend the Constitution in this particular respect, and therefore let us go back to the people. I think the danger that we face, and which I think we must warn ourselves against as a nation, is that every time we come up against a slight hiccup in the process of implementation, or a slight challenge, or a slight difficulty, that the knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh, it means this Constitution is bad, or it means this is unworkable, and therefore let us go to a referendum. And I think that is something that we need to warn ourselves against.
Give us a scorecard, if you could, just in terms of transition. How have we done in terms of implementing devolution?
I think, let me begin by saying, and then I will try and give some justification. If you were to ask me on a scale of 0 to 10, where I think we place ourselves as a nation in terms of implementing devolution, I would put it at around 7. The reason...
7?
Yes, I would put it...
That's way up there.
Yes, I would put it way up there, because the principles that underlie devolution, are still as valid as they were when the Constitution was passed, and a year ago when devolution came into operation. Now, let us begin with the Constitution itself, the provisions. Those, of course, were already there. The laws that were required to give effect to devolution under the Constitution, all those were done, and were done in the time frame that is provided for in the 5th schedule. Came the elections, so the officials and the governments were established at the county level. Now, then, of course, in the meantime, before the elections, the Transition Authority was established as a mechanism to facilitate the transfer of functions as contemplated in the 4th schedule. Now, one of the areas where we did not do well was the manner in which the transfers were effected, because the Constitution at Section 15 of the 6th schedule and the Transition to Devolved Government Act at Sections 23 and 24 contemplated a process that was phased in the language of the Constitution and asymmetrical, and provided for a 3-year transition process. But for reasons which really, I think, came down to political reasons, between the national government on the one hand and the 47 county governments on the other, they transferred pretty much all the functions more or less at one go. And such problems as we have today in terms of the transition to devolution are, in my view, on the view of CIC, can be ascribed to that mistake, and it was a mistake. And
you've mentioned politics, and I'm just wondering, how much is politics playing a role in this new call for a referendum?
I think it's two things. I think politics is playing a huge role, and in addition to politics, I think there's a question of the huge expectations of the people, and then let's not forget that there was always a residual category of people in this country, some of them very powerful, who are never quite comfortable with devolution at all. So for them, it's glee when they see that there are hiccups here and there, and therefore I would say the clamor for devolution, the biggest contributor to that, I think, is the politics of the moment.
But do you think Kenyans, we as Kenyans really understood what we were passing at the time?
I think we did. And even now, I think anybody who stops to look at the Constitution and the laws made under the Constitution, it's not difficult to understand devolution as is provided for in our Constitution. I think it is when we deviate from the law, the letter of the law, as for example happened with the way that the functions were transferred. That is one problem. I think again a political and probably public relations level, I think there's a large extent to which the county governments have not helped themselves in some of the impressions that are created. It's partly their fault in some of those, but it's also some of the problems that we are seeing, like issues about public expenditure and the management of public funds in the counties and so on. I think it is just becoming we have a problem about management of public affairs and public finances as a country, but it becomes more glaring at the county level.
Let's talk about money now. Are we overrepresented as Kenyans? And this is an argument based on the salaries that have been now created because of the positions created in the new constitution. MCAs, MPs, nominated persons. Is there an easier way of doing it? Can we still be represented, but in a leaner way? Okay.
First of all, we need to deal with facts. And let me begin with the issue of the perception or the argument that the offices created by the Constitution, such as the ones that you have mentioned, have contributed to this huge public wage bill, which we all accept is a problem. Now, we need to put the statistics and the facts and figures out there, because my understanding is that if today you are to remove all the state offices created by the Constitution, the entire lot of them, what you would save in terms of the public wage bill as it is today is less than 5%. So is that really where the problem is? Or is the problem of the public wage bill a problem that we have been living with for the last so many years, but which is now being projected like it is a problem with the Constitution? Having said that, it's an important problem that needs to be addressed, especially if it is going to be used as an argument to attack devolution.
Let's talk about the Mutambo bill a little bit. And he was in studio with us yesterday, and he said, his proposal is on the table, and should it go through, Kenya will save between 5 to 7 billion shillings a month. That's reducing the counties from 47 to 10, reducing the number of MCAs, scrapping women representative positions as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, two things. One, I don't know what that is in percentage terms, because if that is in the context of the wage bill, I think we need to be realistic in terms of how many, by merging to reduce the number of counties, how many the actual number of public officers that we will get rid of. So we need to understand that in percentage terms. But I think the more fundamental issue is, are we having a serious argument here? Are the people of Kenya ready to reduce those number of counties? For me, if the people wanted to reduce the counties, great. But is it a serious argument? I mean, I look at arguments about boundaries and the passion with which people are having those arguments about county boundaries. I'm not sure how serious we are when we say that we are going to tell them to to merge and reduce the number of counties.
Okay, let's talk about payments. And your commission is one of the highest paid commissions. Is there a way that can be reduced? Perhaps have a smaller team as well in a number of the commissions that are in place?
Talking about the CIC, you need to remember two things. One, the CIC is a transitional mechanism. It's a one-term commission, which has now less than 2 years to go. That's one. Number two, you know, whether you're talking CIC, you're talking of any other commission, you're talking of any public official, those in office at the moment, you would not be able to reduce their remuneration. But in terms of looking at the remuneration as a broad issue across the board, I think it's always a legitimate issue. But I think it is a falsehood to create the impression that that is where the problem of the public wage bill is.
I'd like to get personal with you. Your salary is just over 1.2 million. That's 1.24 million.
Yes.
You come second after the Chief Justice, who earns 1.27 million. Are you overpaid?
Relative to what? I mean, I am the first person to admit that in terms of, in the context of the public service, I am one of the better paid public servants. But overpaid relative to what? Relative to what I would be earning if I was in private practice?
We could say relative to Serem, who gets about 300,000 shillings.
So, these are some of this is why it's always good to discuss facts and compare apples with apples. Sarah Serem works part-time. So to compare what Sarah Serem earns and what I earn is not, you're not comparing.
So can we get people in your commission to work part-time as well? Because why can you not get, you know, some people on consultation basis? It's possible to get commissioners to work part-time. In fact, the Constitution provides for that. But in the case of CIC, I would tell you, as it is, CIC will be struggling to complete the implementation process within the 5-year period. Obviously, if people work part-time, then that process will not be completed within the 5 years. At a personal level, since you asked me a personal question, you see, my working full-time comes with certain restrictions in the Constitution. For example, I can't work 9 to 5 and then go back to my law practice. If I worked part-time, I could do that. So at a personal level, I would probably benefit more if I worked part-time. But I think to look at it from the perspective of saving on the public wage bill, I think that it's not a real thing that we are discussing there, because what are you going to save, and are you going to be able to complete the work? So what should we be discussing then, finally?
What we should be discussing is the entire issue of the management of public the management of public funds, including the public wage bill. But the public wage bill is only one of the aspects. We should be talking about corruption. We should be talking about leakages. We should be talking about actual expenditure at both levels of government. And we should be talking about value for work. Do we have, for example, I'm just throwing a question out there, do we have more public servants than we need? Now, to address that will require a lot of political courage. But we don't want to address that. We instead want to talk about, like I said, we want to talk about the Constitution because it's an easy target, notwithstanding that, like I said, we would be addressing less than 5% of just the issue of the wage bill, leave alone all the other issues that relate to management of public funds. That's what we should be addressing. All
right. Thank you so much for shedding this light on a matter that's very close to the hearts of Kenyans. Thank you so much. Charles